Ever get that feeling like you're surrounded by people who just don't get it?
Oh, absolutely. You mean like you're the only one who sees things clearly?
Exactly. Like, are you kidding me?
Well, guess what? That's exactly what this deep dive is all about.
We're going to explore the DISA model.
You know, the one from Surrounded by Idiots.
Yes, by Thomas Erickson.
It's a fantastic book, by the way. Really helps you understand why people act the way they do.
It can be so frustrating when you feel like you're speaking a completely different language.
Especially at work, right?
Oh, tell me about it. So the DISA model basically breaks down behavior into 4 main types:
Dominance.
inducement, and analytic ability.
And they use colors as a shorthand, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, makes it easier to remember, right?
Definitely. So you've got your reds, yellows, greens, and blues.
But before we get into each color...
Hold on, let me just say this.
Sure.
No type is better or worse than another. It's just about understanding how they operate.
That's such a key point.
Because once you understand that, you can communicate so much more effectively.
And avoid a lot of headaches.
Exactly. It's like having a secret decoder ring for human behavior.
Oh, I love that analogy.
So speaking of decoding behavior, let's dive into the first type, the reds.
The go-getters, the leaders, the ones who just take charge.
Think of someone like a classic CEO, driven, action-oriented, competitive.
Always focused on the bottom line.
Exactly. They thrive in environments where they can take control, see tangible results.
But their need for control can also make them a bit, well...
impatient.
Yeah, a little bit. There's this great story in the book about a red CEO who turned a company soccer tournament...
Oh, I remember that one.
...into a total bloodbath.
He was so competitive. I mean, it's supposed to be a fun team-building event.
Right. But for him, it was all about winning.
Classic red behavior. It's not always a bad thing, though, right?
Definitely not. I mean, that drive is what makes them so successful.
It's just about understanding how to work with it, how to channel that energy in a positive direction.
Okay, let's move on to the yellows.
Oh, the yellows. Full of energy, always optimistic, super social.
They light up a room, don't they?
Absolutely. They're the life of the party, always coming up with creative ideas, thinking outside the box.
But can that sometimes make them a little,
scattered?
Yeah.
A kid disorganized?
Maybe a tad. Remember the story about the yellow sister who couldn't even imagine rain?
Oh, yeah. Even when it was pouring outside.
Their optimism is contagious, but it can also be a challenge, especially when you're trying to get things done.
Okay, next up we've got the greens.
Ah, the greens. The calm, steady presence in any situation.
They're the peacemakers, right?
Exactly. They value harmony, avoid conflict, and are incredibly supportive.
Great listeners.
The best.
Yeah.
But their need for stability can sometimes make them seem a little...
passive.
Yeah, maybe hesitant to speak up, especially in a group setting.
Like that story about the green colleague who offered unsolicited boiler advice?
Oh, on a Sunday morning, no less.
His timing was just unfortunate. But that's the green personality. They want to help to create a sense of harmony.
And finally, we have the blues.
The analytical ones, the detail-oriented folks.
The ones who always spot the typo, no matter how small.
Exactly. They crave accuracy, precision. Think of them as the data analysts, the researchers.
But that can sometimes lead to...
overthinking.
Yeah. Like, remember the story about the blue friend who pointed out the crooked cupboard door?
In a newly renovated kitchen.
It's like, come on.
But that's the blue personality. They see the details that others miss, which can be both a blessing and a curse.
So, we've met the reds, the yellows, the greens, and the blues.
A whole spectrum of human behavior.
And now that we have a basic understanding of each type...
the question is, how do we use this knowledge?
Right. How do we actually apply it to improve our communication?
Well, stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive.
Because that's where things get really interesting.
We'll be discussing practical strategies for communicating effectively with each color type.
Using real-life examples from the book, and even some from our own lives.
It's going to be a great one.
So don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Now, how can we use this knowledge about the different colors to actually improve our communication?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. It's one thing to understand these personality types, but how do we actually put this into practice?
Well, let's start with the reds.
Okay, the reds.
Remember, they're driven, action-oriented, and they really thrive on taking charge. So how do we communicate with them in a way that actually resonates?
I guess being direct is key.
Exactly. Cut to the chase.
No need to sugarcoat things.
Exactly. Avoid overwhelming them with like tons of explanations or getting all emotional. It's more about, here's the plan, here are the milestones, let's get this done.
I can see how that would appeal to them. their efficiency and their need for results. But what about when things get a little heated? Reds can be pretty intimidating, especially in a conflict.
Oh, absolutely. Their directness can definitely come across as aggressive sometimes. But here's the key. Don't back down.
So it's about meeting their energy, not being afraid to stand your ground.
Exactly. But also remaining calm. Present your points logically. Don't get sucked into an emotional battle.
Because Reds respect strength.
They do. And decisiveness. The book had a great example, remember? The manager who successfully navigated a conflict with a Red employee just by staying calm and presenting her perspective.
It's a delicate balance, being assertive but not aggressive.
It is. Okay. Now, what about yellows? I find them so engaging and full of ideas.
Oh, they are?
But it can be hard to stay focused sometimes.
I know what you mean. It's like a whirlwind.
Exactly. Like you're in a meeting and they just start brainstorming a million brilliant ideas.
But there's no clear structure.
Right. You get sidetracked so easily.
Because how do you stay on track without, stifling their creativity?
That's the challenge. Well, the key is to have a clear agenda, a structure for your interactions.
Okay, a framework.
Exactly. But also, remember that yellows are super responsive to visuals and stories. So instead of just like bullet points, try using a whiteboard to illustrate your ideas or telling a story to really capture their attention.
Oh, that's a great tip. It's about channeling their energy productively.
Exactly. And don't forget about clear deadlines and agreements because
they might overcommit.
Yeah, in their excitement.
Okay, now let's talk about greens. I sometimes find them a little hard to read.
Oh, the green.
They're so calm and collected.
Always.
It's hard to tell what they're really thinking, especially if there's a disagreement.
It's true. Greens are all about harmony. They really avoid conflict, so they might not openly express their opinions if they disagree with you.
So how do you encourage them to open up without putting them on the spot?
That's a great question. Patience is key.
Okay, patience.
Create a safe and supportive environment. Instead of putting them on the spot in a group, maybe try a one-on-one conversation, a more relaxed setting. Start by sharing your own perspective, and then gently invite them to share theirs.
So it's more about creating that space.
Exactly. Give them time to process. Remember that story about the green employee who was criticized for being slow?
Oh, yeah.
And then completely shut down.
It's about being sensitive to their needs.
Exactly. Okay, and finally, the blues.
Oh, the blues. Analytical, detail-oriented.
They can be challenging.
But also amazing.
Oh, for sure. They're like walking encyclopedias. But that need for precision can sometimes lead to delays in decision-making.
So if I'm working with a blue colleague, I need to be prepared with the facts, the data, a solid plan.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to give them all the information they need. They want to understand every detail. They'll appreciate your thoroughness. But to avoid getting bogged down in the details, try breaking down large tasks into smaller steps. That can help create a sense of progress and prevent them from feeling overwhelmed.
That makes sense. It's about creating a structure that supports their analytical process. But what if they get stuck in the details and can't make a decision?
Oh, that's classic blue behavior. In those situations, help them connect the dots. Remind them of the bigger picture, how their contributions fit into the overall goal.
So something like, I know you want to be thorough, but let's not lose sight of the end goal.
Exactly. Your insights are crucial for moving this project forward.
It's like having a secret decoder ring for human behavior, like you said earlier.
It really is.
It helps you understand the why behind people's actions and tailor your communication.
That's the power of the DISA model. And remember, we're talking about these distinct color types, but in reality, most people are a blend of these characteristics.
Right. It's a spectrum.
Exactly. The key is to be observant, recognize the patterns, and adapt your approach.
It's like learning a new language, the language of human behavior. And fluency takes practice.
It does. The more you practice observing and adapting, the more natural and effective your communication will become, and the better your relationships will be.
Speaking of relationships, the book also talks about how the DISA model can be applied to our personal lives, not just work.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive. How understanding these different behavior types can help you build stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
Welcome back to our deep dive on the DISA model. So far, we've talked about the 4 colors, red, yellow, green, and blue, and how we can adapt our communication style to each one. Now, how about our personal lives? Can we use this stuff outside of work, too?
Absolutely. It's actually fascinating how these same principles can help us in our personal relationships, with our partners, families, close friends. Understanding their DISA profile can make a huge difference in how we interact.
So give me an example. Let's say I'm in a relationship with someone who's a strong green. How can knowing this help me, especially during those, disagreements?
Well, remember, greens are all about harmony. They really try to avoid conflict. So if you, let's say, approach a disagreement head on, in a very direct and assertive way.
Which can be tempting.
It can be. But with a green, that might actually make them withdraw even more.
Oh, so it's more about creating a safe space for them.
Exactly. Make them feel comfortable expressing their feelings. Don't force a confrontation.
Give them time.
Yes. Time to process. It's not about avoiding conflict altogether. It's just about approaching it in a way that respects their need for peace, for balance.
This reminds me of those classic red-green couples. Where one's all about action and the other wants to carefully weigh all the options.
Oh, yeah, that can definitely lead to clashes. Imagine trying to decide on a vacation destination.
The red is ready to book the tickets. The green is still researching.
Exactly. But by understanding each other's DISA profiles, they can learn to appreciate those differences.
Find a compromise.
Yes. The red might learn to be a little more patient, and the green a little more assertive.
It's about finding that balance. Respecting each other's individuality, but also working together.
Exactly. And that's what the DISA model is all about. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about giving you the tools to understand people better and create stronger relationships.
Thinking about all this, it makes me realize that this isn't just about understanding other people. It's about understanding ourselves, too.
That's a really great point. Self-awareness is so important here.
Once you know your own dominant color, you can start to understand your own motivations, how you communicate, how you approach challenges.
Exactly. It's like holding a mirror up to yourself.
So a red, who knows they can be a bit impatient, might work on those listening skills.
Right. And a yellow, who realizes they tend to overcommit, might need to learn how to prioritize better.
It's about acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses and making conscious choices about how we interact with the world.
Absolutely. And that brings up another important point. Self-care.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding your DISA profile can even help you figure out what kind of self-care you need.
So a red might need that intense workout to de-stress.
Right. While a green might prefer a quiet walk in nature, it's about finding what replenishes you, what helps you be your best self.
It's been such a great deep dive into the world of DISA. I feel like I have so many new tools to understand people better, both at work and in my personal life.
I'm so glad to hear that. Remember, this is all about approaching your interactions with curiosity, empathy, and an open mind.
It's about seeing the world through a different lens.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more you'll discover the richness and beauty of human behavior.
And build stronger, more fulfilling relationships. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you found this insightful and helpful.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep connecting.